All right, we're gonna look at our mathematical model we created for average annual salary versus high school GPA. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so we can see the graph and the questions a little bit more clearly. And so let's start looking at number one. It says, would you describe the relationship between high school GPA and average annual salary in adulthood as a strong correlation, weak correlation, or neither? And we're supposed to provide evidence. And so correlation is related to this r squared number. And so if I write r squared is equal to 0.995, r would be equal to the square root of that. And so if I take 0.995 and I take the square root of that on my calculator, I get 0.997. And so our R value is 0.997. And so with that information, we do know that it is a strong correlation. And it's a strong correlation because that R number is greater than 0.8. And it is a strong correlation because R is greater than 0.8. And so what that means is that there is a very strong correlation between how much money you're going to make, your average salary, and your high school GPA. The second one says rewrite the equation using a function notation where SW represents the average annual salary in adulthood and W represents high school GPA. And so to do that, we'll just simply say S of W is equal to, we look at our linear equation up here, 8,200. We're going to replace the X with high school GPA, which is represented by W, plus 11,000. And so now we've rewritten our equation using the trend line as the function. Okay, question number 3, it says, what is the domain of the function? And so the domain, our GPA or W, has to be greater than or equal to what? We can't have a negative GPA, so the domain of our function has to be W, or our high school GPA, has to be greater than equal to 0. And it's because we can't have a negative GPA. That's not possible. So we're saying all the values for GPA have to be greater than or equal to 0. Question number 4 says, what's the range of the function? The range of our function, S of W, has to be greater than or equal to 0 again. And again, it's right here, the range of our function, this point on the y-intercept. And the reason is because, again, we can't have a negative salary. Question number 5, it says, what's the slope of your trend line? And explain the interpretation of the slope in words. So what's the slope of our trend line? The slope this trend line is equal to 8,200. That's our slope right there. And what does that actually mean? And so it means that
if you get a second, come back out.
The reason again that it's 8,200, and what that means and what it's telling us is that for every 1 point GPA increase, we also increase our salary $8,200. And so what that's saying is that if you make $20,000, every point you increase your GPA, you add $8,200 more dollars to that a year. So now we're going to estimate the annual salary if 1.5 is our high school GPA, and we're going to do this by a calculation. And so we're writing out a calculation. S of W is equal to 8,200. We want our W, or our X value, our GPA, to be 1.5. So we'll input that there, plus 11,000. And we'll simply solve that. So I'll take 8,200 times 1.5, and then I'll add 11,000. And I get at the X value of 1.5, our salary is going to be $23,300. And so what we've done is we've made an estimate based on our trend line that if we have a 1.5 high school GPA, we're going to make about $23,000. So one way you can check that is then you can look at your line and see if the number makes sense, and it does because it's above 20,000 there. The last thing we need to do is this time we are going to do it the other way. If we want to make $30,000 a year, what should our high school GPA be? And so again, I'll take S of W is equal to 8,200 W plus 11,000. All right. Now this is going to be where our 30,000 goes in. That's our y-intercept, remember? And so I'll make that 30,000 equals 8,200 W plus 11,000. You simply solve for W, so we'll subtract 11,000 from both sides and divide by 8,200, and you should get your answer. W is equal to 2.32, and that's GPA. So what that is telling us is if that we have a 2.32 GPA, we're going to make about $30,000 a year. So if you look at that, that looks about right on our chart up there. And so there's some ways you can interpret the data in your mathematical model to make predictions.